Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Tuesday, and all of today's guests, including Cam Robinson from Elite Prospects on his way to Vegas and the draft, are brought to you by the Bayside Oceanfront Resort. Book your stay at the Bayside. Enjoy the many amenities the hotel has to offer, such as oceanfront rooms, free parking, oceanfront restaurant, cafe, indoor and outdoor pools, gym, and more. Call 250-248-8333 or go to their website, Bayside Resort Parksville. .com. Delaney's OK Tire in Langley inbox. Just before we get to Cam, Bobby in Vancouver. This is thoughtful. I think the NHL should add another award for MVP of the finals, right? Like the NBA.
Yeah, right.
Conn Smythe is awarded for the MVP of the entire playoffs. So I think a lot of fans maybe assume the Conn Smythe is only for the finals. It's not a bad suggestion.
No, it's a very tough spot.
Bobby in
when
Vancouver.
the losing team guy wins it. He doesn't want to be out there. Come on, let's be honest.
Although MVP of the finals could also be from the losing team.
That's true.
Right? You know what? A show for another day, but there's a lot of awards that the NHL could hand out, like new trophies.
Yes.
Like I think there should be a trophy for most valuable offensive defenseman or the defenseman with the most points. Call it the Bobby Orr Trophy. Yeah. We could go on and on, but Cam's waiting patiently here from Elite Prospects Draft coming up on the weekend down in Vegas. Cam is headed there. Cam Robinson from Elite Prospects. And Cam, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, fellas. Thanks a lot for having me on.
No problem. I talked about this in the first segment, but Cam, the Panthers win the Cup. They have, I believe, only four of their own draft picks on their roster. What does that say about the right way to build a team in the National Hockey League these days? It goes against conventional thinking in the way I think, too.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And you know, you look at Vegas last year as we make the joke is who's Vegas going to take in the first round this year to be the next player they trade away, right? Like it seems like these teams that have maybe some attractive markets, they can use that draft capital. They can use those young players to really package up and get impact guys. So you know, Anton Lundell, though, was a recent first rounder for the Panthers and played a very big role for them. And he, I think, is going to continue to blossom into a really impactful piece for them long term. But when your competitive window opens, if you have to sacrifice 18, 19, 20-year-olds, guys that you think would have a long time, impact in your organization for some short-term gains, you do it for a chance to win the Stanley Cup. And it's worked back-to-back years here now.
Draft on the weekend, and we're jealous. You're heading down to Vegas to check out the Sphere and everything else Vegas has to offer. Macklin Celebrini, the consensus number one. Everybody knows about that, especially here in Vancouver and down in San Jose. Who do you have at number two?
I've got Caden Lindstrom, and so I'm a bit on an island.
Wow!
Yeah,
wow!
I've done I've done this before as well. I put Quentin Byfield number one on my board a few years back too, and I took a lot of heat for that at the time. I stuck to my guns. And Caden Lindstrom, he's not Quentin Byfield, but there are some comparisons that we could look at. Is that this is a 6'4", 215-pound center who is somewhat raw still. Like he hasn't played a ton of elite hockey up to this point. And, his evolution through this year in Medicine Hat, he scored nearly a goal per game. His skating is powerful. He hits like a Mack truck. Like he can catch guys in open ice. He can run defensemen through the end boards. I had one really prominent, highly considered defenseman in the WHL reach out to me and say, don't put my name out there, but this kid is the hardest matchup in junior hockey. Like his small area game, he handles a puck like he's Mitch Marner. So I think that, and his skating is already very, very strong. Like he can blow by guys, and it's not like perfect yet. Like there is a lot of lengthening that stride could get. So you get him with a quality skating coach, and we could be looking at a player that could be a matchup nightmare in 4 or 5 years. So the upside is extremely high, and just the uniqueness of that size, that skill, that skating, and the premier position. So for my money, it's Caden Lindstrom. You won't get a plug-and-play player, whoever takes them here in the top five. They're going to be waiting similar to Quentin Byfield, arguably, the most improved NHLer this year. But when he's 21, 22, and then when he's in his prime of his career at 25, 26, he's got a lot of juice to be a really impactful player.
And Cam, BC kid, Chetwynd, British Columbia up north, Fort St. John, and Delta Academy, so we know Caden really well. Okay, the Canucks don't have a pick in rounds 1 or 2. What are they looking at in round 3? Like, give us Give us some names that possibly they could take in round 3.
It'll be really interesting to see how they go about this, because when you don't have a pick until the third, and then then you're looking at late round picks, is that, do you go out and be like, we want to get an NHLer out of this draft, so you can be like, at least we got one, and so maybe they go a little safer, maybe a little lower upside player in that third round to be like, let's see if we can get someone who can one day play in the NHL, has NHL tools, or do you just start taking big cuts on talent? Because do you really want to draft someone that you're like, this is going to be a fourth line center one day if everything breaks right? But you can get those guys on waivers. You can get them in trades quite easily. You can sign them for $1 million in free agency, right? Or do you want to say, hey, let's this player has elite skating and great hands, top 6 level, but he's a little undersized, maybe not physical enough, but we can work with that. We can maybe develop that into something. So I'm really curious to see what Patrick Allvin and company do with these picks. But, just to throw out a few names, there's this one kid, AJ Spalassi. He's a 6'3" right shot center, arguably the fastest feet in the draft. Like, this kid can wheel, and he's an athlete. A couple years ago, he had a huge decision to make. He had 5 Division I scholarship offers for football as a safety. And he was a 3rd round pick in the OHL, and he chose hockey. So I think his career, the bright lights were probably trending for him to be a football player. And instead he went hockey. So he only put up 35, 40 points this year, but as the season wore on, we started to see flashes of more skill. I think that he's very raw, but there's a project here that could turn into a really kind of unique, speed driven top 9 center. And if you can get that in the 3rd round, you take a swing on that. If you're looking on the blue line, a kid like Noel Franzen, kind of a boomer bust offensive type. He leverages really, really strong skating to create off the rush. He loves to jump into the play, be that high man or lead it. He needs to work on some of his defensive game and some of the decision making with the puck. He can get a little too dangly out there and cough it up in bad positions. Torrey Pittner, a right shot defenseman, really detailed, so kind of the opposite of Franzen, a highly nuanced defensive player. Strong shutdown skills, physicality, precision stick work, great against the rush. And he's flashing some puck moving ability as well. And also like a really good kid, just like Caden Lindstrom is too, who these are some of my favorite players in the class, these real character players as well. And we'll throw one more out there just because we got to get another Swede on the board, is Alex Zetterberg. No relation to Henrik, but creative, shifty, excellent on the power play. Like, he really amplifies his game, really steps up his game when he's playing internationally for Sweden. At the U18s, I had an opportunity to watch him there in Finland a couple of months back, and he was everything for that Swedish squad. And then he got injured before the medal rounds, and that really sucked the air out of their team, and they got bounced early. So he's one that's unranked for the most part. On people's top 100s, Bob McKenzie's list, we didn't we ranked him in the hundreds, but he's a player that could arguably be there in the 3rd. Maybe they could get him in the 6th round even too, but one of these ones that you could bet on the upside. The feet are good, but he's a little undersized, and that's going to be kind of the knock, is that he's going to have to continue to produce at elite levels to kind of make up for the deficiency in the height department.
For our viewers and listeners in Kelowna, Jerome McGinley's kid Tij is going to go high. What can you tell us about him, and where do you got him going?
I've got him number 4 on my board, and I thought I was going to be the highest on him. Again, one of my favorite players. And then Craig Button went out and put him 3. So I'm pretty sure Craig did that on purpose, and him and I are going to have some words in Vegas about that. But no, I'm a big fan of Tij Iginla. Again, I got to spend a little bit of time with him in Finland at the U18s. And unsurprisingly, coming from that family, but just a very gracious, considerate human. You can see him interacting with fans. He's got all the time for them, but it's the whole package with him. When you talk about the on-ice product, is that, yes, he has great hands. He's never met a defenseman he didn't think that he could stick handle through. He has a great release, scored 40-odd goals this year. He took such a huge jump from that move from Seattle, where he was, getting healthy scratch in the Memorial Cup, didn't see many minutes last year, and then goes to Kelowna and really just took off. But down the stretch, it was the defensive stuff too. Like, the little details to his game, the nuance of his forechecking routes to really cut off escape routes for defenders, lifting sticks on the back checks, stealing pucks, a little thief in the night stuff, getting into those hard areas, protecting the puck. He told us at the combine that, he wants to move back to the middle of the ice next year, so a position that he played when he was younger. And I think he can do it. I think he can do it successfully because of how smart he is, strong he is, and the details of his game. So, now if we're talking about a potential center, he's got good enough size. He's got good enough feet. Is that I think he's going to go very, very early. I know a lot of Calgary Flames fans are hoping that he's going to be sitting there at number 9. I think he's going to go earlier than that, but I will drop this in here too. Is every year I put out 5 bold predictions for the draft weekend, and this year I'm putting a little spin on it where I'm going to give my 5. But I also texted, some GMs and some scouts and some other executives and asked for some of their bold predictions. And 3 people told me same answer, is that they said Tij will fall to 9 and Calgary will pass. So that obviously is going to end up in the article, but that would be something. I think there'd be some pretty cantankerous Flames fans if that was the result. But I don't actually think they'll have a chance to pass on him because I think he'll go earlier than that.
And Cam, before we let you go very quickly, any doubt Macklin Celebrini is going to have success in the NHL?
No doubt whatsoever. This is a true number 1 overall pick. He is a power pivot in every sense of the word. Great skater, physical. Like he can leave guys, with the wind knocked out of their lungs with open ice hits. He'll drive defenders into the boards. The shot is good. The hands are good. He's a leader. The only thing is he's not 6'3", so now he's not Eric Lindros, but he's, if you go all the way back to 2016, that draft class, the only people I'm taking first overall ahead of him would be Matthews and Connor Bedard. We could have the conversation about Jack Hughes, totally different players. Hughes with that electric skill set. But, at the EP draft guide, we gave Celebrini shades of Crosby and Jonathan Taves. And if, you put those 2 players together and they had a baby, it's Macklin Celebrini. So this is the type of player that's really going to change the complexion of the San Jose Sharks. And, he's good enough to one day lead a team to a Stanley Cup. And I mean, you can't really ask for more than that from a first overall pick.
Did you just bring up the 2016 draft? You're not supposed to do that in Vancouver, Cam. I don't know if we can have you back.
Do we talk about Matt Tkachuk too?
Yeah. I think he's doing just fine. Cam, thanks for this. We'll get you back.
Yeah, appreciate it, boys.
You bet.